We now have the first reaction from top government sources to the statement that was made by Pakistan Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto, a below-the-belt attack on Prime Minister Modi. This was in response to what Foreign Minister Vijay Chauthaiwale had said at the UNSC the day before about countries that house and protect Osama bin Laden should not be the ones lecturing the world, to which Bilawal Bhutto had made a below-the-belt comment. Now, the response from top Indian government sources is that Pakistan has become the epicenter of global terrorism. Failed Pakistani politicians have surrendered almost all of their political powers to the Pakistan army. As Foreign Minister of Pakistan, this statement by Bilawal Bhutto is being viewed by top Indian government sources as a below-the-belt personal attack on Prime Minister Modi. Pakistan is frustrated. It's a failed state. It's created millions of non-state actors, many of whom are now coming to cost Pakistan. Look at the situation that's happened between Afghanistan and Pakistan just in this past week. It is an example that, as Foreign Minister Jaishankar said, if you keep snakes in your backyard, don't be surprised if one day they come to bite you. These top government sources who have spoken to our investigations editor Manoj Gupta also going on to say that Bilawal Bhutto's reaction seems to be one of frustration. It's a heat-of-the-moment reaction to the statement that Dr. Jaishankar made talking about Osama being hid in Pakistan. It also appears as some kind of a calculated escalation so that the internal stakeholders and the domestic constituency in Pakistan is appeased. Remember, Imran Khan has been putting pressure on the current establishment. He's been putting pressure on the army as well. You have a new army chief in General Asim Munir. So this is an attempt by the Pakistan Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto to try and appease that particular internal domestic constituency, as it were. So the top government sources have spoken to Manoj Gupta, also saying that we'd like to remind Bilawal Bhutto that his grandfather, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was also famous for making such erratic statements, for making such intemperate statements, and look at the fate that he met. So let me now go across and try and get some perspective on this from the BJP's Foreign Affairs Department in charge, Dr. Vijay Chauthaiwale. Thank you very much, Dr. Chauthaiwale, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Zaka here. First things first, your reaction to what Dr. Jaishankar said about countries that housed Osama bin Laden should not be preaching the world about terror, and then Bilawal Bhutto's rather personal and below-the-belt attack on Prime Minister Modi. How would you see both these comments?
First of all, Bilawal Bhutto has no locus standi to give any sermon to India on the issue of terrorism, and therefore it is quite frustrating for him to listen to Dr. Jaishankar ji in UN, in the Global Forum platform. See, as you know, whenever there is a domestic crisis in Pakistan, they have always used anti-India card for their own survival. And this is a very typical tactic. And every person who comes into the government shows some softness toward terrorism because they continuously use terrorism as a kind of instrument of their diplomacy. As far as Dr. Jaishankar's statement is concerned, he has made things very clear. Saka, you might be remembering that in 2009, Dr. Manmohan Singh actually surrendered to Pakistan when he said that terrorism and talks can go together. But this government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has made it explicitly clear that these two things cannot go together. They have also made very clear that there is nothing like a good terrorism. Every form of terrorism is a bad terrorism, and the civilized world should uniformly condemn it. However, Pakistan... Yeah, please, go ahead.
Dr. Chauthaiwale, you said, every time there is a new dispensation in Pakistan, they tend to go soft on terrorism. Given also what we've seen at the Afghanistan-Pakistan border over the last week or so, do you believe that Bilawal Bhutto and the other hawkish statements we heard from the new Pakistan Army chief when he was in POK last week, all of these hawkish statements, do you believe they are doing this because of the blowback that's happening right now between the Taliban and the Pakistan establishment, which is very apparent and visible at the Pakistan-Afghanistan border? And therefore, as a consequence, should we be worried about the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, which by and large is held for the last year and a half or so?
I guess definitely the dynamics between Pakistan and the current Taliban regime in Afghanistan playing a role in all these reactions. But even without that, by default, the Pakistan position is soft on anti-India terrorism. As far as the your second issue is concerned, that we have always strived for a peaceful coexisting with our neighbor, and therefore, in that context, we would also wish that there should be tranquility and the status quo on India-Pakistan border. But if there is any misadventure, Indian Army under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi is quite capable of giving a fitting reply, as we have seen it in case of surgical strikes or air strikes.
Dr. Chauthaiwale, from our western neighbor, let's talk a little bit about our northern neighbor, China. And given this recent episode that we've seen in Tawang, we saw what happened in Galwan in 2020, and the nature of this attack with clubs and sticks and barbed wires and so on. Do you believe China is using this as a pattern? And as an observer of foreign policy, what do you think China's game is? What are they trying to do here?
China's game here is definitely show that one-upmanship, and they never anticipated that Indian Army will give such a fitting response to them. They thought that they will do some incursion, capture some land, and then they will be able to sit on it till the negotiation come to some conclusion. But the fitting reply by Indian armed forces was really a surprise to them. I will not be surprised that if such a very isolated skirmishes between the two countries continue in the future also.
I want to, as the consequence of this Tawang clash, you've seen what has happened in Parliament all week. It's pretty much washed out on this issue. The opposition is saying that, how come the government always keeps Parliament in the dark about this? Would you want to comment on that, on what the opposition is saying?
See, Congress party, which has signed a MOU with Chinese Communist Party, and Congress party foundation, Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, who received the donations from China, have very little to say about China. And therefore, they are using this as a diversion tactics to address the core issue that how come did they take money from China? Why there was not enough donors in India? They didn't find any friendly person from India to get a few crore rupees donation. So there is a very tactical move when they accepted these donations and signed MOU. And there is always an appropriate time to announce every such event. And I am sure government has taken the full cognizance of whatever has happened in Tawang sector, and then only they announce what about the event rather than giving some half-baked information. So I am very glad that the government has done a very mature way. The government has dealt with this in a very mature way.
All right. And one final word as we close. So we have these hawkish statements from our western neighbor, from Bilawal Bhutto, from the Pakistan Army chief. And then you're seeing what is happening with the northern neighbor in contested points along the LAC. Do you believe that there is going to be sort of these additional squeeze points going forward in 2023? Because 2023 is a big year for India. It's hosting the G20, it's hosting the SCO. It's really a year in which India will be telling the world that we have arrived on the global stage. So our neighbors, do you think, will start sort of pinpricking to try and burst that bubble, if you will?
No, Zaka, the very assumption in your statement that this is a bubble and not reality.
No, so I mean, for them it's a bubble.
So I differ with you in that, or I differ with them. We are standing today on the very firm ground in international diplomacy with your nuanced approach to every crisis that the world is facing today, and